Most people don't lose time because they're lazy. They lose it because they're emotionally stuck and don't even realize it. Let's talk about why time disappears without you noticing. Most people think they waste time because they lack discipline or motivation. That's the popular narrative. You procrastinate, you get distracted, you scroll too much. But the truth is more complex and more uncomfortable. People often lose time not because they're lazy, but because they're emotionally stuck in unresolved psychological patterns. When your nervous system is overwhelmed by chronic stress, shame, or emotional neglect, your brain prioritizes survival, not progress. You may appear calm, functional, even productive, but internally, you're stuck in a freeze response. You avoid making decisions not because you don't care, but because your body is afraid of what happens after the choice. You stay in a job, a relationship, or a routine not because it's fulfilling, but because it's familiar. And the familiar, even when painful, feels safer than the unknown. This isn't laziness. It's emotional paralysis, and it's more common than we admit. In this video, we're going to unpack the psychology behind emotional stuckness, how it hijacks your ability to act, distorts your perception of time, and ultimately leads to years of your life slipping through your fingers without you noticing. If you ever felt like time is moving, but you're not, this video is for you. But recognizing the pattern is enough. Many people intellectually understand that they're emotionally stuck, but they still can't act. That's because the blockage is somatic, not just cognitive. As Dr. Peter Levine, founder of Somatic Experiencing, explains, trauma is not stored as a story in the brain. It's stored as tension in the body. This is why you can logically decide to change your life, but still wake up unable to move forward. Your mind says go, but your body is frozen in stay. This disconnect is also reinforced by societal conditioning. We're taught to equate movement with success and stillness with failure. But there's a form of stillness that is actually intelligent. Your body protecting you from pain it hasn't yet processed. Unfortunately, when that stillness lasts too long, it transforms into inertia. And inertia, when left unchallenged, becomes identity. People don't say, "I'm feeling stuck." They begin saying, "I'm the kind of person who can't follow through." Or worse, "This is just who I am." That's the moment when emotional stuckness becomes a self-concept, and time begins disappearing silently, day after day, under the illusion of personality. To make matters worse, emotional stuckness often hides beneath rational goals. You pursue certifications, side projects, or relationships not because they align with your values, but because they temporarily distract from your inner deadlock. This form of functional avoidance is deceptive. It feels like progress, but it's just movement without direction, and time keeps slipping. Here's the deeper truth. People stuck in emotional paralysis often become masters at pretending to be okay. They show up, they smile, they work, but inside, they're emotionally suspended between who they used to be and who they're afraid to become. And in that in-between space, time becomes weightless. You stop feeling its value. You stop fearing its loss. Until you wake up one day, panicked, wondering how you got here. That moment is painful, but it's also powerful. Because once you realize time isn't a thing you spend, but something you inhabit, you can begin to reclaim it from the places it got trapped. You can stop asking, "How do I become productive?" and start asking, "What emotional truth have I been avoiding?" Dr. Gabor writes extensively about this in his work on trauma and addiction. He argues that most self-destructive behavior isn't rooted in a desire to sabotage. It's a strategy for escaping pain. The same is true for how we waste time. It's not an accident. It's a pattern of unconscious choices shaped by fear, shame, and unresolved grief. This is why motivation techniques often fail, because they address the behavior, not the underlying emotion. Telling yourself to just do it is like yelling at a locked door. You need the key, and the key is safety, not comfort, not avoidance, but the internal felt sense that you are allowed to take up space, to want more, to move forward even if you're still scared. Reclaiming time, then, isn't about calendars or goal setting. It's about inner permission. You have to allow yourself to want again, not just wish passively, but want deeply enough to risk action. This may sound simple, but it's psychologically demanding, because when you've been emotionally frozen for years, re-entering time can feel like stepping into a flood. You suddenly feel everything: the grief, the regret, the pressure to make up for lost time. But healing doesn't happen by rushing forward. It happens by returning to yourself with honesty and care. It starts with micro movements, choosing not to rationalize the pain, choosing to acknowledge the delay without judgment, choosing to ask, what do I need to feel safe enough to move? When you approach emotional stuckness with curiosity instead of criticism, you begin breaking the cycle. You stop seeing time as something that happened to you and start seeing it as something you can step back into. And here's where something beautiful happens. The very moment you reconnect with a part of you that still wants more, you start healing the rupture between presence and time. You stop living on autopilot. You begin feeling the weight and the value of a single day, not because it's optimized, but because it's yours. In a world that celebrates constant motion, it takes courage to stop and ask, what am I really doing with my life? That question isn't crisis. It's a turning point. You may not be able to reclaim every year you lost to fear, silence, or indecision, but you can reclaim what those years tried to steal from you, your trust in yourself. And that's what makes time sacred again. And maybe that's the real measure of healing. Not how quickly you move, but how honestly you begin again. Time doesn't ask you to be impressive. It asks you to be present. And presence isn't passive. It's one of the most active states of mind you can reclaim after years of emotional shutdown. When you choose to see emotional paralysis not as weakness, but as a signal, a message from your body that something needs attention, you stop blaming yourself and start listening. That shift alone begins to unlock time. Because now, instead of negotiating with fear, you're in dialogue with truth. And here's the final reminder. Time isn't lost forever. It waits behind the decisions you've been afraid to make. It waits in the life you postponed. And it waits in the parts of you that still believe something else is possible. You don't have to fix your whole life in one day, but you do have to stop giving away your time to people, patterns, and past that never earned it. The moment you decide that, you've already begun. Emotional stuckness is not just a personal struggle. It's a collective epidemic. In a world that rewards speed and punishes silence, those who freeze are often misjudged as weak, lazy, or unmotivated. But paralysis isn't failure. It's a signal. And until we learn to decode that signal, we will continue to lose the most precious resource we have: time. The real cost of being emotionally frozen isn't just missed opportunities. It's the erosion of identity. You begin to forget who you were before the fear took over. You become so accustomed to managing discomfort that you forget what it feels like to be truly alive. The tragedy isn't that people don't change. It's that they stop believing change is possible. But belief can be rebuilt. The process begins when you stop asking what's wrong with me and start asking what happened to me. That shift is not just semantic. It's transformational. It takes you out of self-blame and into self-understanding. And from there, the rebuilding begins. You do not need to earn your place in time through endless productivity. You do not need to justify your existence with achievements. You are allowed to simply exist, to feel, to pause, to start again. That is not weakness. That is reclamation. Psychologist Kristen Neff calls this process self-compassion, treating yourself with the same gentleness you would offer someone you love. And that, ironically, is what restarts time, not pressure, not punishment, but patience. The nervous system does not respond to force. It responds to safety. If you feel behind, it's not because you failed. It's because your pain hasn't been witnessed. Emotional healing is not about forgetting the past. It's about learning to carry it differently. You can't erase the years you lost, but you can stop losing this one. That begins now. Reconnection doesn't have to be grand. It can start with 10 conscious minutes, a single choice, a boundary held, a breath not dismissed. Each of these are acts of resistance against a life lived on autopilot. Because the truth is, time never truly leaves us. It waits. It waits for our return. It waits for the moment we finally turn inward and say, I'm ready, not ready to race, but ready to re-enter. And when you do, you'll notice something strange. Time begins to slow. You see more, feel more, choose more. Not because life is easier, but because you are present. Presence is power. It is how you reclaim yourself from years of emotional abandonment, not just from others, but from yourself. So if you take one thing from this video, let it be this. You are not stuck forever. You are paused, and you are allowed, right now, to begin again. Thank you for watching this video. If something in these words resonated with you, please take a moment to share your thoughts in the comments below. Your voice matters, and your reflections help us continue creating content that speaks to the deeper, often unspoken layers of the human experience. If you found this video helpful, consider subscribing to the channel and turning on notifications so you won't miss future content on emotional healing, psychological insight, and the journey towards self-understanding. And if you know someone who might need to hear this, feel free to share it with them. Sometimes one quiet video can become the beginning of someone else's healing.